Round 7 was the second of 2 races in Canada. The number 1 Audi of Frank Biela and Emanuele Pirro set pole for the 2-hour 45-minute race that they led away on the rolling start from teammates Tom Christensen and Dindo Capello. But disaster struck for Emanuele Pirro when he went into the barrier and was taken to hospital as a precaution. The championship-leading GT Porsche of Sascha Masson and Lucas Law was also involved in some bodywork battering moments. Johnny Herbert and Stefan Johansson moved up to second place with a Cadillac of JJ Leto and Max Anginelli behind in third, whilst Christensen and Capello cruised towards victory. The 56 Phil Beam was leading the 675 class after the leader changed several times throughout the race. Whilst the lead in the GT class was still being closely fought, as always, right up to the checkered flag. But the number 2 Audi had a comfortable lead and cruised to the race victory with plenty of time in hand over the privateer champion Audi. The Cadillac held third place despite closing on second place in the final laps. That gave Tom Christensen an extended championship lead with teammate Dindo Capello second, and now Johnny Herbert moves up to third place. John Field hens Ben Devlin in the 675 class. Ron Fellows has a 10-point lead over partner Johnny O'Connell, and in the GTs, Sascha Masson and Lucas Law still are in charge of that. It's all looking very healthy now for the number 2 Audi, whose concentration is getting to finish every time now and not risking points to take the win if they don't have to. So the twilight is about to descend on this year's championship, and now, after 2 races in Canada, it returns back across the border to America and the Laguna Seca circuit in Monterey. Then it's on to the streets of Miami before the 10-hour race at Road Atlanta rounds off the season. Laguna Seca in sunny California, home to the 8th round of this year's American Le Mans Series. This 2.2-mile circuit is built on a former US Army base close to Monterey. It's a demanding circuit and requires total commitment, but doesn't offer the best of grip and is always very dusty off the racing line.
2 tickets for the price of 1, 2 super tickets for the price of 1. Buy 1, get 1.
After 2 morning practice sessions, it's the critical qualifying session that lasts for only 20 minutes, although the laps are not limited. The GTS and the GTs are combined in 1 session. Current GT class leaders Lucas Law and Sascha Masson completed only 3 laps in the session to secure pole position and, importantly, save their limited sets of tyres. But for Ron Fellows in the Corvette, qualifying was not to be as straightforward, especially at the famous corkscrew, and that was not to be the end of his problems in the session either. 4th in class after the session ended, he would then be relegated to 30th place on the grid for the start.
Flat spot to the right front going into the corkscrew, and traffic on the next one went off the road, and basically the tires were done. So we've got to start at the back with another set of tires. And it's not the first time we've done that, so it's depending on how cautions go, it's really not that big a handicap.
After steadily improving reliability over the last few rounds, the Franz Conrad Motorsport Saleen was on the pace here, qualifying ahead of both the Corvettes, and normally that would have given them the GTS class pole. But the arrival of the ProDrive Ferrari pushed them down to 2nd place.
Yeah, it's frustrating. We wanted to be on the top of the grid, but the Ferrari team's done a great job, and it's a beautiful car, and we're real happy to put the Saleen S7R second on the grid in front of the Corvettes, and we'll see how the race goes.
The ProDrive Ferrari arrives for a month-long stint in the US. The FIA Formula 3000 champion Thomas Eng set the pole tie on his very first visit to the circuit. He's partnered by Peter Cox, who's been testing with the team prior to the event, and the results have given them a quick car and a lot of confidence.
I've been here like 5 years ago, but it's a long time, and Thomas was never been here. Our car was quick in Le Mans, but we expected to struggle maybe a little bit more here against the Corvette. But yeah, we put it on pole, so it looks quite good now for the race, I think.
In the LMP 675 class, the benchmark was set this time by the 16 car of James Weaver and Butch Leitzinger. And this is the first pole for Weaver in the Dyson team's Lola. The team has only recently switched to the 675 class from the 900s.
You know, it's only our second race with the car. The first thing we've got to do is finish. I'm driving with Butch Leitzinger, who's obviously extremely quick. So I'm sure with Butch in the car at the end, he'll have no problem at all dusting off any opposition.
The Paynos team look and are very professional, but with limited resources and development, they've struggled over the last few rounds to keep up in the 900 class, and they had a radical rethink for Laguna Seca.
We've changed all the aerodynamic bodywork on the car back to last year's bodywork kit, trying to find an improvement, which, you know, we think is better going back, but you know, we just don't have enough information yet to be sure.
And they were not the only ones in the 900 class looking for answers to lack of performance. Champion Audi team were having a nightmare weekend here too, with Johnny Herbert and Stefan Johansson unable to get the car higher than 5th in qualifying, but that was still ahead of the two Paynos cars.
It's a strange place, this, because I mean, I've probably done about 15 races here, and it's the same every time. If the car is great when you roll it out of the transporter, it's great all weekend. If it's not, you can change literally the whole car, and nothing seems to make any difference. And unfortunately, we're at that point this weekend, so we're struggling a bit at the moment.
After qualifying and racing well in Canada at Motorsport, the Cadillacs arrived in California and were on the pace again, with the number 7 car of Eric Bernard and Emmanuel Collard taking 4th on the grid.
It should be very difficult during the race because, as usually, it's very difficult to overtake, especially here, because when you go outside the line, it's very dirty, and then it should be very, very hard.
JJ Leto won here in a BMW in 1999, so he knows the course well, and despite the pace of the Cadillac, he knows that it will still be hard to win against the Audis.
Of course, Audi still has a little edge on us, and it's difficult to catch up, but for sure we are much closer, and the race is always tough. It will be even closer than qualifying. As long as we are able to keep up with them, it will be good.
Championship leaders Tom Christensen and Dindo Capello took the 2nd place on the front row of the grid in the Audi Sport North America R8 prototype. Consistency to earn points is their main objective to ensure the championship this year.
This racetrack is one of or is the most beautiful racetrack in America, because from the driving point of view is great, from the safe point of view is great, and I really like to come here and drive here because it's something special.
After getting back to fitness after a horrendous crash at Motorsport, Emanuele Pirro has had another setback when he arrived here at Laguna Seca, as he was now suffering from flu. But despite that, he put the number 1 Audi on pole in qualifying.
I'm very happy because I'm not feeling very well. I came with some temperature, and so I wasn't very confident. But as far as one quick lap is concerned, so far it worked. So it's looking good for tomorrow.
Last year's champions have not now had a race win since the 3rd round at Mid-Ohio, something that they are very aware of. They're currently 3rd and 4th in the Drivers' Championship. The number 3 Corvette of the GTS Championship leaders, starting from 30th after being pushed down the grid for having to use an extra set of tyres. A total of 32 cars on the grid for the start, and that totals up to 69 drivers representing 15 countries, ready for this 2-hour, 45-minute race that was won here last year by Frank Biela and Emanuele Pirro in the Audi. Just before 12 noon, and with an air temperature of 76 degrees and a track temperature of 99 degrees, it's the final few moments before the cars head out on 2 pace laps before the rolling start. Perfect conditions here for racing, and it's going to be an interesting race, no doubt about it. And confirmation of the grid then, it's the 2 Audis that will lead away the field on the front row, followed by the 2 Cadillacs. Well, of course, interesting time it will be in the GTS class, the Ferrari and the Saleen. Of course, Ron Fellows moving from 18th to start in 30th place, and that is going to be very, very shortly indeed, because here they are now, and coming around this final turn onto the start-finish straight, which is a 4th gear, 129, 130 mile an hour straight. They'll get the green flag very soon, and then they go up the hill, and away they go. Good, perfect start for the number 1 Audi. Up the hill now, up to in the region of 160 miles an hour before they drop down into around about 90 miles an hour. This 3rd gear turn, and it's interesting already. Johnny Herbert losing a place there, I think, as well. We're on board with the number 50 Panos, and through goes one of the Cadillacs, I think, as well. So it is number 2 Audi in 2nd place behind Pirro. Cadillacs still changing the positions in 3rd and 4th place. We're on board the number 56 Philbeam now. We're looking ahead at the Corvette, and all, of course, tentative moments while the temperatures, the brakes, everything gets up to full working temperature as we look at the number 7 Cadillac now that slipped through before to take 3rd place. Johnny Herbert's car, driven by partner Stefan Johansson, down a couple of places now. He's behind the Panos, so anxious moments for him. And of course, as we've heard several times, there is only one line here. If you get off the line, you pick up a lot of dirt. It takes quite a while to get those tyres clean again, and this is, I think, going to be one of the bylines of the race. Stefan Johansson behind the number 51 car, Bill Oberlane in that. There's number 11. Number 11, Chad Block in the Nighthawk Lola MG, leading the 675 class. He's got ahead of James Weaver. Just caught the sight of James Weaver there, so he's lost a place. Did, of course, start on pole position for the 675 class. Thoroughbred racing machines, the 900s, like the Panos LMP01 there, and this car, the customer Audi, the champion Audi. Thoroughbred racing machines, the 900s, given their name because their minimum weight must be 900 kilos, and it's 675, of course, for the 675s. Back on board with Stefan Johansson once again. 2.238 miles per lap, 3.602 kilometers, and driving for 2 hours 45 minutes, well over 100 laps. And there is the ProDrive Ferrari, still ahead of the Saleen in 2nd place. It's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. Behind the wheel, Thomas End here for the first time. His partner Peter Cox, as we heard, has raced here before, but not been here for 5 years. But the superbly organised team have just been so quick right from the start. Took part in the Le Mans 24-hour race earlier on in the year and had a few problems there, but they're back. And this project has only been going for a couple of years, and they've started with road-going production machines. They've stripped them bare and built them back up. And the Saleen gaining, I think, slightly on the back of the Ferrari, but it is early days. Terry Borchella behind the wheel of the Celine, the 26 car. He'll hand over later to the team's founder and principal, Franz Conrad. And Franz made his name in racing through Porsches, contested in the FIA GT Championship, moved through into the American Le Mans. There's number 4, that's the Corvette of Andy Pilgrim. And he's in 3rd place at the moment. The number 0, Olive Garden Ferrari, behind him. And the Olive Garden Ferrari has just got stronger and stronger as well through the season. They had a lot of reliability problems with it. And the 56 Phil Bean behind that in the 675 class. And very soon it's all going to get shaken up very quickly. There will be cars everywhere. The class is already mixed, of course, depending on how they qualified. But the number 4 Corvette at the moment upholding the honours for the Corvette, the GM Corvette team. Ron Fellows quite some way behind. But there is the race leader. That's the Mazda pulling off to the side there. They started from the pit lane, but at the moment, that's our race leader. This is the 2nd place man who crosses the line now. Current championship leaders, Tom Christensen and Dindo Capello. Heading round turns 3 and 4. And there, the number 7 Cadillac and the number 8 Cadillac switched their original starting positions, but the Cadillacs have just been going so well. Their final season, we're led to believe, of competition before the plug is pulled on the project. What a shame, what a loss that will be if we don't see these cars back out on the circuit next year. And the Audi's just been so dominant again. The Audi North America team, Joest, have just got such beautiful, beautiful cars. As race leader comes up now to number 79, and he's going to lap him very quickly indeed. Through he goes without any problems indeed. Justin Jackson in the J3 team's Porsche 911 GT-RS in the GT Classic course. Good view of this wonderful circuit from the helicopter shot high above. Plenty of spectators. The weather has been perfect all weekend. Some of the warm-up sessions and the practice sessions have been hindered by early morning mist. That's given away to blistering heat and the track temperature all the time coming up. That's the GT battle, and it's the 23 car that leads it at the moment, ahead of teammate in the other Alex Job car. So 23, Lucas Law leading Jörg Bergmeister. And we've seen some terrific scraps between these two. More credible in the fact that the teammates, and they keep it very clean, and the racing spirit is absolutely unbelievable. Stefan Johansson there behind the Panos, and they've caught and passed the Porsche, the 22 Porsche now as they go through and past the 23 car as we ride on board the rear of that. Good sweeping areas, good runoff curves, and that's what we heard Emanuele Pirro talking about before. There's the 675 class leader, Chad Block. And Chad driven a few times for the Nighthawk team, and they've got good reliability now. You're saying that the unfortunate times at the last race, but looking good so far. A little bit of clear track ahead of him as well at the moment, giving him a chance to get the foot down. Keep it smooth, get in a good rhythm. Claudia Hurtgen joined them at Mosport for the first time in the team, and she's a terrific driver. She'll be taking over later on board, though, with our race leader. Everything going pretty well at the moment for Emanuele Pirro as he comes up behind the number 4 Corvette already. And again, you have to remember that Emanuele Pirro is not totally fit at all as he goes past the start-finish straight up into 6th gear, 160 miles an hour, down 3rd gear, 90 miles an hour, then back up again to the next turn. Maximum speeds they'll reach here, probably just up that main run. So they pass the start-finish rate about 160 miles an hour, but some frightening parts of the circuit that just demands so much confidence and so much dedication. The corkscrew who we haven't had a real good look at yet, is absolutely unbelievable. It's like dropping off the end of the world. There's James Weaver in the Dyson car that's second in class in the 675. Took pole. And as we mentioned earlier, they've recently moved into the 675 class. And they've been making a lot of alterations. They've got reliability now, which is the key thing to it. There's 37. John Field not having the best of weekends. The reliability has troubled him all season as well. They've had some very bad luck, but a very capable team, the Intersport team. And John Field, a very capable driver, so he's picking his way through. He started quite a way down the order as well. James Weaver is 9th overall. John Field behind him in 10th place. So these guys currently 2nd and 3rd in the 675 class. On board with Emanuele Pirro, and that was a tremendous crash that he had at the last round. Perfectly okay, lost a little bit of consciousness. That's why they took him to hospital as a precaution. But these guys are so fit. Looks over as he passes one of the slower class cars. Just feeds the acceleration gently. Elevation change now. And it is very difficult from the TV pictures to see just how much this circuit changes. They're heading up now towards the corkscrew. Oh, gets it wide on the curb there. And just a very anxious moment there. The clump as the car hits those sawtooth concrete curbs, just being unsighted and slowed there by the Intersport car that moves over, waves him past. And good driving, good sportsman-like driving. Through goes Tom Christensen. Well, that was quite a scary moment at the corkscrew. Blue flags out to warn the slower cars. Well, in fact, it's the Celine that is being made to look positively slow now by the Aldi as he flies through and puts a lap on the man that's in 2nd place in the GTS class. Back on board with Pirro. And a lot of traffic now. That's the 675 2nd place man that he's behind now, James Weaver. James very enthusiastic about this car. They've been working quite closely with Goodyear, the tyre people. He waves the leaders through. And such sportsman-like behaviour in this series. Everybody is the best of friends. Everybody respects everybody else out on the circuit. And it really is a joy to see these guys and to know these guys. And they have the utmost respect for each other on the circuit. Down the corkscrew. And a long, long way down to the bottom. Left-hand turn, and then down onto the lowest part of the circuit. 132 miles an hour, up to 125 before they brake again, come down to about 70 miles an hour around this final turn. And turn 11 leads out onto the start-finish straight, 130 miles an hour now, then up to about 160 miles an hour now as they go out of the shot. Very quickly on the brakes again, and now the leader behind one of the Ferraris. 2 Ferraris here for the first time, 33 and 35. There's a 360, which is that car there. And that's in the GT class amongst the Porsches. There's a 675 leader about to be caught and passed. So Chad Block will see the number 1 Audi looming very large indeed. Tom Christensen in the meantime is just slowly keeping up with his teammate. Be interesting to see what happens. He knows that if he stays where he is, the points will be enough to keep them safe. But they, of course, would like to be on the top step of the podium, but it will be an opportune moment that lets him pass. It's more against a feat of actual racing. They'll keep it clean, I think, will be the tactics now. This is, of course, the first of 3 races that remain in the championship this year as they knock down another lap on board with Emanuele Pirro up the hill, past the media centre there on the right-hand side. Apparently a lot of development going on here at this fabulous circuit. And certainly a good place as well for this series that concentrates so much on the fans. And a puncture for the Olive Garden car. Emmanuel Naspetti comes into the pits, but there's more problems as well. It's got a broken front left suspension, and that is the result of a drive-through penalty for Jan Magnussen after contact with the 43 car as he heads out of the pit lane now, and rumoured to be some damage to the car as well. Emanuele Pirro, race leader then, still ahead of teammate Tom Christensen. And Tom Christensen will hand over to Dindo Capello a little later on in this race. And Emanuele Pirro, of course, will be handing over to his teammate Frank Biela. But it's all going pretty well, nice and smooth. Not too much pressure from his teammate either. And in the pits, this is Jan Magnussen handing over to David Brabham. We saw him with that penalty before, but some fuel going in now. The mechanics can't touch the car, only the drivers can change over, and the mechanics just having a look. They're ready, poised, ready to change the tyres. Just caught sight of Terry Borchella, second place in the GTS class at the moment, and he's about to be caught and passed by the number 1 Audi, number 2 just there in the distance, and Terry moves over and lets the faster class car through. And the GTS cars have to be production-based models, same too with the GTs. And of course they are seriously modified cars, but they are more identifiable as production cars. And of course the likes of the Audi R8 you're looking at now are pure racing machines, pure thoroughbreds. Top speed in the GTS class, well, around about 195 miles an hour is achievable. The GTs would expect about 170, and the LMP 675 is about 180 miles an hour. So depending on the cars and the setup, the GTS and the 675s very matched to each other. There's Brian Herter now being helped into the cockpit by Bill Oberlane. Changes in the 51 Paynos then, and that's the number 3 Corvette of Ron Fellows. It's in the gravel. So something's happened to Ron Fellows. That's at turn 4, but in the pits meantime, Tom Christensen gets out, Dindo Capello gets in, and here's David Brabham in the Paynos now after taking over after quite an early pit stop, and more pit stops as well for the number 1 Audi, the race leader, as Frank Biela gets in now. Fuel's in, tyres are done, and down, and Audi goes, has to adhere to the pit lane speed limit, which is rigorously enforced by the IMSA officials, who do such a sterling job organising this championship. And Frank Biela just making sure that he can go out of the pit lane. They pitted quite early after that caution, which hopefully, and there's the safety car, and he's not quite sure what he's got to do. Somehow he's got to slow right down and not come out ahead of that car.
So far everything goes good. We pitted in a fraction before the pit was closed, and so there was a little discussion whether we were in before or after. Thanks God the judge reckoned that we were in before, and after this big issue now it's down to Frank. But the car is going well, so I'm quite confident.
So worrying moments for the Audi pit, just hoping that they weren't going to get penalised, and all the cars holding place now while the safety car continues. The corner workers clearing away all the debris off the circuit. A lot of attention paid to keeping this circuit clear here. There's a lot of dirt, and that does get on the circuit. They do sweep it quite regularly to try and keep ahead of it, but the procession continues for the short while whilst everything's cleared up as a result of that incident with the number 3 Corvette.
Yeah, one of the P cars ran into the side of me twice in turn 4, and then we ended up in the gravel trap, so we're down 5 laps. So hopefully the car's it's got a little bit of right side damage, hopefully it'll make it to the end. We're still fourth in class. Hopefully we can maintain that to the end and forget this weekend never happened and move on to Miami.
Well, you can feel the disappointment from Ron Fellows. He's normally such a... Well, that was flames coming out the back of the Corvette. The number 3 Corvette has gone offline by the corkscrew, and now fire is enveloping that car. There's a cloud of extinguisher smoke, but it's going the wrong part of the car. It's the other side, and that could be as a result of damage. Maybe the exhaust has caught the fuel line or something, but that's enveloping into a big fire, and now Johnny O'Connell takes over trying to put the fire out. And anxious moments there, and all the flames fly back at him. Well, he's got out of the way and he seems to be okay, but that is a big, big fire. All the spectators around the corkscrew area can hardly believe what they're seeing, and it's always exciting up there, but nobody expected this, and that car is very badly damaged indeed. A lot of work will have to be done to that. That was one of the new chassis that the team was using, that they were hoping to use for the Petit Le Mans, so a lot of work is going to have to be carried out on that. So, under caution, the race has taken another turn again.
The first stint was pretty exciting because the nature of the circuit, the evaluation changes you see here, but you don't see so much on television, unfortunately. But this makes it very difficult for the other categories to see us when we are approaching them. So there are pretty hairy, scary moments.
Well, Tom sporting a little bit of designer stubble this weekend. And there we have the situation at the moment then. First, second and third. Frank Biela still leading them away. JJ Leto in second place. This, of course, is because of the pit stops. Dindo Capello in third place. David Brabham in fourth place at the moment. JJ Leto, though, will have to pit, but the Cadillac's going pretty strong. JJ Leto would dearly love to be leading this race now, but slim chances, I think, of picking that up. They come through the start-finish straight. The race underway again after that incident. All very close together, but I think it won't be too long before the gap starts to pull out again. And looking from the front of David Brabham's car, he's got Eric Bernard behind him in the number 7 Corvette. Johnny Herbert is behind as well. But very soon, that number 2 Audi is going to be looking for a serious way past that Cadillac as quickly as he can. Of course, Dindo will want to keep up with the number 1 leading Ferrari as closely as possible, just in case there's that chance of nipping through easily to take a win away from the number 1 team. And it is quite surprising how long it's been since they won. They've won twice this year. But at the moment, the Cadillac is doing a good job. JJ Leto behind the wheel, doing a good job of keeping Dindo behind him. But of course, all the time, that number 2 Audi is coming up to temperature. It should be pretty much there now. The tyres, the brakes and everything after the fuel stop. A little bit more weight on board, of course, with the extra fuel that's been topped on the start-finish straights. Number 1 Audi starting to leave that Cadillac behind a little bit now. And the Paynos hanging on as well. And your heart does go out to the Paynos team. They have so much spirit of America they've got on the side of their cars. And sometimes they just have to admit defeat, but they just keep carrying on, keep trying. We heard Brian Herter say they completely changed the aerodynamics back to last year's, hoping that would give them a bit of a lift. The 22 car leading the GT class at the moment. Timo Bernhard in the Alex Joe Porsche, the 911 GT3 RS ahead of teammate Sasha Masson, who just comes into view there. That was the number 13 Archangel car that we saw in the background as well. In the 675 class, the Corvette, the number 4 Corvette, of course, the only one running now just ahead of this car, but 22 leads the GT class ahead of their teammates. And the yellow sunscreen as against the red one indicates the cars. It's an easy way to tell them from the front. On board then with the number 23 cars, they head up over the top and down to the corkscrew. Here we go, total commitment round the turn, and it just drops away, and again you have no real indication of how steep it is at all. And that's the number 7 Cadillac that's pulled to the side. Problems for the number 7 Cadillac. Eric Bernard has stopped there at turn 5, so that looks to be terminal for them. Disappointing for the Cadillac team. Meanwhile, number 1 leads the race. Frank Biela is looking quite sweet and comfortable in that Audi. The Intersport car just picking up the dust then as he ran slightly wide. Now he'll see the Audi yet again, and again a wave to say, pass me this side, I'm moving over. And number 1 Audi not losing too much time at all there. Well, the same pairing won last year in 2001. And Capello and Alan McNeish. Alan McNeish, of course, who currently driving for the Toyota Formula 1 team. They won in the Audi in 2000 here. And JJ Leto and Steve Soper winning in the BMW in the first year of the series in 1999. Next year's calendar still being put together at the moment. Rumoured to be around in Europe. Expected to be an 11-round championship next year, but they did have a couple of races a couple of years ago in Europe, but it was too difficult for all the teams. The financial implications as the Alex Joe Porsche gets passed by the race leader. And clean track ahead of him now as he continues along his way. Well, another turning point in this race. The number 2 Audi has had to come into the pits. Dindo Capello sitting there anxiously waiting because he's got a broken right rear control. And Brian Herter locking up the front of that Panos as he tries desperately to stay ahead of the Cadillac of JJ Leto. And I think this will be a reorganising of the leaderboard once more. And in the pits is the ProDrive Ferrari. That's the 550 Maranello in the ProDrive pit. And Peter Cox has now got out of the car. Thomas Eng has taken over, the Czech driver. And that is the man that's leading the GTS class now. The Celine was leading until they took their pit stop. And then the Ferrari was leading. And now the Ferrari's pitted, and the number 4 Corvette is leading. That's Kelly Collins, partner to teammate Andy Pilgrim, as the Corvette comes out of the pits. In second place in the GTS class. They stayed ahead of the Celine, but behind the Corvette now.
I lost quite some time with people that were not getting their tires up to temperature with quicker cars, and then I overtook with a bit of risk, and then I didn't see them, and then they came back to me, and it was that cost me a lot of time, because then you don't have enough power to be in front, you know. So that was a bit of a shame. So we lost some ground, but I think maybe our tactic works now, and we can still win it.
Oh, that's the 79 Porsche of Mike Fitzgerald. It's got broken front suspension at turn 6, and this is the 675 leader, Butch Leitzinger, that's behind the GT class Ferrari, the 360 Modena. Beautiful car. And Butch Leitzinger in the Dyson Lola MG, having taken over from James Weaver, and of course taken over the lead in the class from the number 11 Nighthawk, but that I think might change again.
Because there's so much sand at the side of the road, and you also get a lot of marbles, you know, coming off the tyres. There's only one line, so trying to overtake is extremely difficult because there's no grip off line. Except down into turn 1, there's a lot of grip on the inside. Everywhere else, you tend to struggle a bit.
Well, obviously finding it hard to push, but they've had other dramas as well. And the boost box came loose, cutting some of the cables, and they lost quite a lot of performance. So that might be why the number... Oh, what's going on here? That is the Cadillac that's been in for a pit stop. And cold tyres and cold brakes. He couldn't stop quick enough as he flew down the exit onto the track again. And that'll take him a while now to clean those tyres up again. But James Weaver suffering problems, and that might be one of the reasons why the Nighthawk got past, but that's only one possible opinion on that. So the Cadillac having a few moments to pass the 360 Ferrari. Cadillac gets back up to speed, heading for one of the Panos cars, which I think was Brian Herter. Yes, it was, as he comes down the corkscrew. And there is JJ Later. Oh, and that's Brian Herter spinning. Well, it looked like the back end just got away from him there, but that was quite unusual. And I was looking at the car at the front as he came through the corkscrew, and whether there was some of the little aerodynamic lips at the front there on the splitter missing, I don't know, but that would make handling very difficult indeed. But keeps up a lot of dust as he gets back onto the track once more. And Brian Herter just will be absolutely distraught about that. Man from California. And double damage to the back of the Porsche there we saw. So they've been involved in an incident somewhere along the line. But Brian Herter, oh, here's a replay then, and just lost it into the turn. But driver error or car failure, hard to say. But possibly some damage to the right-hand side front there that you can't see from that shot. Well, just trying to have a look again, and it's possible, but really can't tell. And I do think, yep, some of the fins are missing. And I think that was before that incident, and that would, of course, make a difference to the car. But Brian Herter continues on, and hoping to get the car home as he comes up over the top now, heading for the incredible corkscrew. And they take it, you know, they're approaching it at something like 145 miles an hour. They take it about 100 miles an hour in third gear, and drop down into second gear to 75 miles an hour. And that's the 22 car that stopped. The Timo Bernhard Alex Joe Porsche has apparently got a broken gear lever. Well, he's fiddling around trying to get it going again, see if he can limp back to the pits. But that means that Sasha Masson has now taken over the GT class lead, and the 22 car has in fact made it to the pits. The mechanic's working on it now, and part of the linkage has dropped down inside, so they'll try and get that car back out. And there's the Archangel car as we look back from the 23 Porsche 911. Good onboard shot there. Left foot braking is an option by some drivers, but here right foot braking, using the accelerator, dabbing the clutch. And drivers' feet, of course, having to work all the time, plenty for them to do, and really good control there, just using the right hand foot to operate the brake and the accelerator as well. Quick change stuff there, no automatic gearboxes on that car. The Viper, just a 45 Viper, just gets it onto the gravel as the Ferrari goes through. And the number 56 Phil Beam Nissan, the Fairy Tale Brownie car, wheel locked at the back there. And that is Chris McMurray that's gone off track, fighting to get a gear, I think, at the moment at turn 8, but he's got one back on the track. That's the view inside his helmet. Good view of the cockpit, good view of the circuit as well. And there is Johnny Herbert, who's inside the champion Audi now and up to second place. So they've been chipping away. They were quite some way back at the beginning of the race, but they've just been chipping away consistently. And look at this. This is the battle for the GTS class lead. And through goes the Ferrari. What a beautiful move by Thomas there to take the lead in the GTS class as they fire now into the corkscrew. There's a Panos there as well. And they're alongside each other. The Corvette closing very quickly on the back of the Ferrari. They're side by side and touching as they go down through the corkscrew. And the Ferrari just nerfs the Corvette, which goes wide. And what brilliant driving in the final stages of this race. And the Ferrari has gone through to take the GTS class lead. And brilliant driving by the young Czech driver, the Formula 3000 champion this year, who's got in this car, and there's the race leader just in the distance. And now Claudia Hurtgen leads the 675 class from the number 16 Dyson car. So this race, now the number 4 Corvette stopped. Problems with the number 4 Corvette, and the Corvette team can hardly believe, and it's rumoured to be out of petrol. Well, apparently information from the car saying that the fuel indicator doesn't say, in fact, say that there is still fuel in there, but obviously nothing is in that at all. Well, a lot of debris on the camera there as we're on board with the 56 car once more, the Fairy Tale Brownie car with Chris McMurray behind the wheel. And he's actually 5th in the 675 class, not helped, of course, by that spin at all, up over the top. And we'll get a low view now of the corkscrew. Good impression there, and you get some idea of the steepness there. Some great onboard shots from this round, and there's our race leader. He's on the last lap and heading for the checkered flag. There's the Chamberlain entered car, the 27 car. Nice to see the Chamberlain team here. Ran Vipers in the FIA GT Championship for quite some years, and just holding up the Audi a little bit now. And he should slip through, I think, the next turn, but not being made easy for him. Christian Van and Mika Duno, the Venezuelan driver for that team. And through he goes, and only a couple of turns to go now before he reaches the checkered flag. Round the final turn, round turn 11. White flag being shown to the others, but hand up in the air, and he'll cross the line to the checkered flag. And they've done it after waiting so long. They finally get a win. And a much welcome win as well. It was for Frank Viola and Emanuele Pirro, and repeating last year's win here at Laguna Seca. Johnny Herbert bringing the champion Audi home in 2nd place, and then a podium finish for the Cadillac of JJ Leto and Max Anginelli. Tom Christensen and Dindo Capello in 4th place after their dramas. The number 11 Nighthawk takes the 675 class win, whilst the ProDrive Ferrari, the GTS class from the Conrad Celine. Lucas Law, Sasha Masson add another win for the Alex Job Porsche team in the GT class. Frank Biela gets out of the car to tremendous applause from the fans gathered around.
It was perfect yesterday with Emanuele's pole, and also in the race there was not so much to worry about, just about your own car, you know, and make sure that you don't retire. So in a way it was easy, but mentally it was quite hard, I tell you.
A storming win in the GTS class for the ProDrive Ferrari after a brilliant drive by Peter Cox and Thomas Eng. That really shook up the class here, and it should do the same at Miami.
When I get finally ahead of the Corvette, I was blocked by one of the LMP car, and we had a little bit touch with the Corvette, but I think it was a nice battle, nice for spectators, and I'm really happy the tires were working really well, the Michelin tires, and the whole crew, ProDrive, did a really great Ferrari car, so this is my lover.
Christensen and Capello still lead the 900 championship. The gap between Johnny Herbert and Frank Biela is now just 2 points. John Field still in charge of the 675s ahead of Ben Devlin. Ron Fellow still heads the GTS. Andy Pilgrim and Kelly Collins, though, move up to 2nd. And head Johnny O'Connell, also, of course, driving for the Corvette team. And a strong lead for Sasha Masson and Lucas Law in the GT class. Well, it's back to the streets for the next round as the series moves to downtown Miami for the penultimate round of this year's championship as it heads towards what is going to be an exciting conclusion.
It gets to wear a little bit of it too. On a nice warm day like today, cold champagne's not a bad deal. Here we go.